Yeah, the reason I say this incident is particularly triggering is I think there is a racial undercurrent to it, which is secondary to the broader point that Pascal was making about monarchy, was people are freaking out about this interview far more than they were freaking out about Prince Andrew going on television and basically saying that, basically completely botching his defense of his Jeffrey Epstein relationship. So the monarchy is under major assault at the moment. But this, I think there is a kind of, because Oprah is involved, because Meghan Markle is a woman of color, I think that particularly gets the heckles of these conservatives up. So, I agree with Pascal's point about this is more broadly a kind of existential fear amongst reactionary nationalists. But I think this particular incident is particularly triggering, to use that word for them, because of the players in the piece. Because otherwise, why weren't they writing this stuff when Prince Andrew was botching an interview about, his association?
Yeah. So for people who might not remember that, he said that even though he went to the Epstein Island, that he didn't do any pedophilia while he was there, and part of his defense was that the report of his involvement had said something about him sweating, and he said that he had a disease that meant that he was incapable of sweating, and then he was actually sweating during the interview when he said this. But he said that he'd gotten over it. He no longer had this disease. So this was probably like one of the all-time worst interviews about something like that. In terms of its convincingness. Like this is really, to come up with something comparable, you'd have to go back to like Jerry Sandusky's extremely ill-advised media appearances, when that scandal was going on. But yeah, I think your point is well taken. That it seems like the fact that they're more worried about it now than they were even then is interesting. We can certainly speculate about why that might be, but let's go through this, because this article. This is all we're going to do for this. I just wanted to go through it like piece by piece, Chapo reading series style, because this article is amazing. So he goes on, but so it has the radical left. And I just want to stop there to parenthetically say that he never explains who he means by the radical left. I guess the National Review, you can just throw that out there, and people won't ask who you're talking about. What's the radical left? Is this, DSA, who's the radical left here? But the radical left has seized upon Oprah Winfrey's televised spectacle with Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, in a crusade to invalidate one of the most consequential conservative institutions on the world stage. Accusations of racism within the royal family are not the point. The aim of modern liberalism can be symbolically discerned in William Walcott's painting, Pulling Down the Statue of George III at Bowling Green, July 9th, 1776, is to tear down everything the monarchy represents. Tradition, authority, virtue, duty, love of country, and biblical religion.
Yeah, the fact that that's what he believes the monarchy represents is, the monarchy represents colonialism, imperialism, racism, white supremacy, wealth extraction, capitalist exploit, war, militarism, murder, genocide. Those are actually the things that make empire what they are. And one of the major attempts that this article tries to make is to paint, as most conservative reactionaries do, try to paint the exploits of Western empire building as a civilizational message. It's like, oh, yes, we enslaved them, but we gave them, railroads and light bulbs, and we must be thankful. And our legal system is wonderful, and if we compare to the Russians and the Chinese, who are suffering everywhere, it's absolutely absurd. But
Yeah, and I'd also point out, as far as the connection to colonialism and everything, that like even literally, the current queen, not that many decades ago, was the one pinning the medals on the paratroopers, after Bloody Sunday, the massacre in Ireland. So this is, this is pretty recent history.
And not just that, the notion that this is some kind of ancient tradition, and I guess we'll get onto this a little bit more, but monarchy has invented itself and reinvented itself numerous times over the decades, and the British royal family is no different. A lot of the pageantry and things we see as tradition related to the monarchy are what Eric Hobsbawm called the invented traditions. These were things conjured up in the late 19th century by Benjamin Disraeli to reinforce conservatism at a time when they were facing a challenge from, liberalism. And at the radical end of British liberalism at that time was, the notion that it was a little bit silly that Britain, as the leading industrial power of the time, still had this quaint, institution of monarchy, which seemed superfluous in a modern age. We forget about the sort of early and mid 19th century traditions in Britain, by which monarchy was nowhere near as sort of well settled in society as it came to be later. I mean, just look at what they've done. Monarchy has, in the last 150 years in Britain, been nationalized, right? You've had the kind of you've had the thin skin of monarchy sort of pulled across the British nation. They changed their name, for example. They're the House of Windsor, right? They aren't the House of Windsor. They're imports from Germany. So
yeah, Hanover, right?
Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. And so the notion that this is tradition, this is a fabricated tradition. Of course, this is common in all national myth making. But even when we look at the monarchy and the things we associate with the monarchy, they are inventions of the 19th century.
This has been a free public preview of a patron-exclusive episode of Give Them an Argument. To get the rest of this episode and every other patron-exclusive episode, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis.